Star Wars 7x7 episode 2293. There's been new footage from The Mandalorian Season 2 and new character posters revealed, and we'll talk about what's new about them and what's intriguing about them today. Punch it. Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod and this is Star Wars 7x7, your daily dose of Star Wars joy. And thank you so much for joining me for it. So, the footage from The Mandalorian Season 2, it's a new 30-second commercial style spot, and most of the footage that is in this spot you've seen before in the Season 1 trailer. Stuff like Greef Karga and Cara Dune walking out to meet someone, presumably the Mandalorian, and the Mandalorian and the child on that boat sailing off to who knows where they were off to. The stormtroopers running in a corridor with their alarms going off, the speeder bikes flying off that cliff, and the one scout trooper like dragging his foot along as he turns. Stuff like that. So what is new is that there is an extended shot of a speeder bike flying through the desert. I think there had been some analyses somewhere suggesting that maybe it wasn't the Mandalorian on that thing, but the way that they cut from that wide shot of seeing a speeder bike going through a desert landscape to the Mandalorian makes it suggest that perhaps it is the Mandalorian on that speeder bike, and there have been photos of the Mandalorian and the child with a speeder bike. So, you know, the Mandalorian on a speeder bike of some kind and the child in one of the pouches on the back. So that's open to a little interpretation still. There is one quick shot of the child who just makes this little like head tilt kind of motion, which reveals absolutely nothing, but I was like, another little shot of the child, how nice. We also get to see more of the scene where the Mandalorian faces off with that one-eyed alien and a bunch of people around him pull weapons, and he gets the whistling birds primed, and the child goes, "Ow," and puts himself inside the little floating pram, right? Now we actually get to see some of the fireworks. We get to see the whistling birds flying around, and obviously it's very quick and brief. It doesn't actually look like the main guy, that one-eyed alien, gets hit in this exchange, at least maybe not in this particular moment of it. And there's a brief move where you see the Mandalorian kind of kicking the pram out of harm's way, and a little bit more of the fight overall. But I have to say, the most remarkable thing about this new footage is a very quick moment where we see the Mandalorian firing his blaster, and it appears that that scene, this very quick, almost blink and you'll miss it scene, is taking place inside the ice cave that we see in the Season 1 trailer, right? So there's that moment where we see the Mandalorian and the child on a snow-covered planet, and then he's carrying the child, the Mando is carrying the child through some sort of ice cave, right? Well, in this sort of blink and you'll miss it moment, it might be, a couple of blinks you could get away with. He looks to be firing his weapon, and he looks to be firing at multiple targets and does not appear to have the child in his arms at that moment. And I thought that was particularly interesting because the way that we've seen that scene depicted in the trailer so far, it really has much more of a meditative, seeking, big reveal kind of quality to it, the way that it was played in the trailer. And obviously, things don't have to work out in the actuality of the episode as they're shown in the trailer, right? All sorts of different things could be happening. And if you want to check out this new footage for yourself, I will link to it in the blog post for this show's episode at sw7x7.com, and I'll include it in show notes as well. And the other thing to share has to do with the 4 character posters that were revealed by the Disney Plus account today. For the most part, there's not necessarily anything new or remarkable, though there is one particular facet that shows up that is worth remarking upon, and I will share that with you in just a moment. Do just want to give you my daily this month ask for leaving a rating or review on the show at the iTunes version of the show. sw7x7.com/iTunes gets you there. And if you haven't done it, I hope you'll consider doing it. It helps more people find Star Wars 7x7 and lets them add a daily dose of Star Wars joy into their lives, just like you have it in yours. And if you've already done it, then thank you very much for that. Now, about those character posters, and I'll link to those as well. The deal with them is that the 4 character posters for The Mandalorian, Cara Dune, Greef Karga, and the Child. They all take place against a backdrop of graffitied walls, so it looks like it's taking place on that planet where we see the Mandalorian and the Child walking, and it's at night, and there are, street lamps and, graffitied walls and stuff like that. So I don't know if we can say for certain that that means that Greef Karga and Cara Dune will also be on that planet. It could just be a stylistic thing for the posters, so I don't think we can jump to that conclusion just yet. But the posters do make me wonder whether this has anything to do with the scene where we see Gamorrean Fight Club happening. And the reason why is because in the background of a couple of those are crude drawings of what look like Gamorreans, or their heads at least. And by the way, the planet Gamor actually is not all that far away from Mon Cala or Mandalore. In fact, where we talked about the possibility of Navarro being, even though it hasn't been identified for certain yet, it is on the eastern edge of the galaxy, a little further to the south if you're looking at it from the top down in that sort of two-dimensional fashion from where Mandalore and Mon Cala are, but definitely closer to where I believe Navarro is than Tatooine is, which is definitely further to the south. So yeah, just throwing that out there as another possibility as well. But the particular thing I wanted to call your attention to is that one of the posters has a stylized graffiti artwork drawing of an Aqualish with a red circle and a stripe through it, like a no Aqualish type thing. And just to refresh, an Aqualish is an example of one would be Ponda Baba, right? So in A New Hope, the character who gets his arm sliced off by Obi-Wan Kenobi in the cantina scene, that is an Aqualish. And as often happens in Star Wars with alien races, Aqualish are generally associated with scoundrel-type actions, pirating, smuggling, bounty hunting, that sort of thing. So yeah, no good things related to Aqualish for all intents and purposes. And, just in case you were interested, the Aqualish were actually on the side of the Confederacy of Independent Systems during the Clone Wars. I am not sure how or whether that could come into play, but there's that extra little tidbit of information for you as well. And so that's what's new and what's possible to be supposed from the new character posters and the new footage from The Mandalorian that came out yesterday. And that is going to do it for today's episode of the show. Thank you so much for joining me for it, as always. And may the Force be with you, wherever in the world you may be.
Star Wars 7x7 is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2020 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.